Released on February 6, 2004, Darksteel is the second set in the Mirrodin block. The set continues the extremely heavy artifact theme of its predecessor, Mirrodin, as well as picks up story-wise where the previous set left off.
That makes sense.
You could read the story for yourself in the Jess LeBeau novel, The Darksteel Eye. And, as usual, we have a quick story summary for you at the ready, and it picks up almost exactly where the previous book, Moons of Mirrodin, left off, with Glissa and company fleeing down the Blue Lacuna, the giant hole that leads under Mirrodin's surface, with several Vedalken in pursuit. They reach the bottom and find themselves in the artificial planet's center. There, they are attacked by Malil, a golem who is the eyes and ears of the planet's de facto ruler, Memnark, and his army of levelers. For reasons yet unknown, Memnark has a keen interest in the elf and seeks her capture. Glissa's mysterious artifact-destroying power ignites yet again, taking care of their assailants and clearing the way for them to return to the surface by way of the Lacuna. They emerge back in Lumengrid after fighting their way through the Vedalken who followed them down the hole to begin with, and finally have a chance to rest. As they do, they discover that Bosch, the iron golem, is beginning to turn from iron into flesh. Puzzled, Glissa, Bosch, and the golem Slowbad return to the wise trolls of the Tangle for answers. Once there, they are greeted by Druge, the troll's new leader, who informs the party that all of the traitors on the council have been dealt with. She's then informed that the sword she liberated from the previous troll leader upon his death is none other than the sword of Cauldra, a sword that is connected to a powerful warrior. The troll gifts Glissa the shield of Cauldra to aid her in her quest, and instructs her to venture to the Vault of Whispers to find and collect the Helm, thus completing the set and allowing the elf to summon Cauldra's avatar as an ally in her fight against Memnark. Just as Glissa receives the instructions, the Tangle is attacked. Malil had survived Glissa's previous outburst and has tracked her back to the Tree of Tales. The golem and its levelers attack. The trolls help Glissa and Bosch escape, but Slowbad gets kidnapped in the chaos. Luckily, a large, talking wolf enters the story and saves him before joining the party himself. Meanwhile, parallel to Glissa's adventure, readers are presented with more and more of Memnark. Completely addicted to serum and slowly turning from metal to flesh, he finds himself ruling over his twisted metallic plane, all the while ranting and arguing with imaginary illusions of his own creator, the golem-turned-planeswalker Karn. Through these rants, we discover Memnark's endgame. Seeing as Karn was able to achieve planeswalker status when he and Urza were destroyed together in the Legacy Blast on Dominaria, then that must mean that he can also achieve such a feat. To do so, he supposes that if he and Glissa, who supposedly has a latent planeswalker spark of her own, are likewise destroyed together by the creation of Mirrodin's fifth son, then he, too, will ascend to planeswalkerhood. All he needs is to capture the elf and bring her to his fortress and have her there with him when the plane's final son is born. He sends his right-hand golem, Malil, after Glissa to fetch her at all costs. The Darksteel Eye also has a third parallel storyline. Pontifex, the Vedalken researcher, now sits in the Synod, the ruling Vedalken body. The Synod's other two members, however, simply do not like the guy and force an election to add a fourth member to the board. Pontifex then travels to the plane's center for an audience with Memnark himself. The golem informs Pontifex that he requires Glissa for her, quote, piece of divinity in order to turn himself into a planeswalker. Despite the Vedalken not understanding much of what Memnark is saying, Pontifex offers up his own body for the golem's benefit. The offer is denied. Instead, Memnark instructs the Vedalken to assist in the capture of the elf. Pontifex has a mental break of sorts and blames Glissa for his rejection by the being he sees as a living god, before he and Malil go on their way to capture Glissa, the golem's metal shell becoming more and more flesh-like, just like with Bosch in Memnark. The separate plot lines all begin to converge as Glissa's party is venturing across the Glimmer Void as they venture towards the Vault of Whispers. Here they are attacked yet again by Vedalken under orders from Pontifex, who, despite instructions to capture Glissa, instead wants to kill her. Thankfully, due to the timely arrival of some New Rock allies, the party escapes the attack and makes their way into the Mephedros and, eventually, into Geth's throne room inside of the Vault of Whispers. Here, they are met by not just Geth, but Pontifex himself, along with Malil and some levelers. After striking a deal with Geth, Glissa is able to locate her prize, the Helm of Cauldra. Slobad manages to align the three artifacts just right, and the giant glowing avatar known as the Cauldra Guardian appears. It makes short work of their assailants, as Pontifex flees the scene. Sadly, the party's wolf friend, Al-Hayat, does not survive the encounter. The remaining heroes venture through the Black Lacuna and into the center of the plain, intent on slaying Memnark and putting an end to his madness. Meanwhile, Pontifex returns home to find that, in his absence, a change of leadership has occurred. The Vedalken Empire has now become the Free Republic of Vedalken, and he is wanted for crimes against the people. The Republic's leaders, the three other Vedalken of the Synod, attempt to imprison him. Pontifex manages to slay the two original Synod members who were there when he joined the former Empire's ruling body, as he makes his escape along with his second-in-command, Merrick. As he does, Pontifex has another mental break that sends him over the deep end. Back with Glissa and friends, they now find themselves on Mirrodin's interior and are quickly attacked by constructs known as Threshers. She attempts to use her special talents to destroy them, but finds she cannot, as the Thresher's metallic hides and innards have all turned organic. She is captured and taken to Memnark. About this time, Pontifex and Merrick arrive on the scene. Pontifex destroys the Thresher so that he can slay the elf personally. This proves to be the last straw for Merrick, who realizes that his master is actively defying their living god. The two Vedalken get into a vicious fight, and Glissa is saved from murder as the two Vedalken kill each other instead. Glissa then catches back up with the remaining members of her party as they finally make their way to the Mad Golem. Memnark, using his gift of control over Artifice, takes control of the Cauldra Guardian. Bosch sacrifices himself to slow it down, allowing the rest of the group, Glissa, Slobad, and the Nurok Browena, a chance to flee. Browena returns to her Nurok homeland, while Slobad and Glissa return to the Tangle, believing that they would have a better chance of destroying Memnark on their own turf. Once there, they are greeted by trolls who direct her to the Radix, an area where the green mana of the Tangle is the strongest. Very soon thereafter, the Memnark-controlled Cauldra Guardian arrives, intent on capturing Glissa once and for all. The trolls of the Tangle sacrifice their own lives as they attempt to impede the Avatar's progress until the Guardian is right on top of the Elf and Goblin. Just then, an immense burst of green energy emerges from the Radix as the green sun emerges from underneath. It obliterates the Guardian as it ascends and catapults Glissa and Slobad onto the ground nearby before sailing through Memnark's fortress and up into the Mirrodin sky. Glissa and Slobad, injured and dazed, lie recovering on the Tangle floor. Memnark, half destroyed from the sun going through his fortress, wakes up a dazed Malil, telling the Golem servant that they have a lot of work yet to do. As for what the mad ruler of Mirrodin has planned, that's a tale for the final chapter in the story, as the plane experiences its fifth dawn. But as for Darksteel, there's still more yet to tell.
How exciting!
The first of Magic the Gathering's small expansions to have 165 cards. Up until now, all small expansions were 143, save for Legions, which had 145. Darksteel employs the use of a shield as its set symbol, specifically the Shield of Cauldra. Darksteel carried over equipment, affinity, imprint, and entwine from Mirrodin, and introduced two new keywords, indestructible and modular. Indestructible is a static ability that is rather straightforward. Simply put, something that has indestructible, such as artifact creature Darksteel Colossus, cannot be destroyed by damage or destroy effects, meaning that cards like Shatter would not have any effect against things like the Colossus.
Why isn't it working?
For the most part, cards with the ability were made from the set's titular metal. Darksteel Brute, Citadel, Colossus, Forge, Gargoyle, Ingot, Pendant, and Reactor. Mirror Matrix and Shield of Cauldra also have the indestructible ability, so, for flavor purposes, let's just assume that they're made of the same metal. Also, the legendary creature Slowbad, Goblin Tinkerer, is able to grant the ability to artifacts, so we'll just assume he's a Darksteel dabbler.
Well, see what I did there?
The indestructible ability has since become an evergreen keyword in Magic, which means it can be used in any set.
Originally it was just a word, like in English, but people kept thinking that it was a keyword, and there's some subtle differences between being a keyword and not, so we finally just made it a keyword because everybody assumed it was a keyword.
As for Modular, it's an ability found on artifact creatures. Artifact creatures with the ability come into play with a specific number of +1/+1 counters on them. If the artifact creature is put into the graveyard from play, those counters are then moved to another artifact creature.
The modular mechanic was a riff off the chimeras that were in original Visions. So the Vision teams had made these things called chimeras. They were artifact creatures that when they died, I think you got a single counter that granted everything about them. Like it'd be a 2/2 vigilance creature died, you would put a counter on another artifact creature that was +2/+2 in vigilance. So we cleaned that up a little bit, made them +1/+1 counters. Didn't do other abilities, just did the +1/+1 counters.
Arcbound Ravager, an artifact creature with Modular, proved to be extremely popular on the tournament scene and was usually found in the extremely powerful affinity decks of the time.
AO Paquette serves with that Arcbound Ravager, feeds a Chrome Mox to it.
Thanks to its amazing synergy with Mirrodin's Disciple of the Vault by providing an easy sacrifice outlet, growing larger as it eats up your artifacts while the Disciple pings your opponent to death.
When I made it, I was just trying to be clever. Modular was a mechanic that we had in Darksteel. The fact there's no cost to sacking the artifacts meant that you can make this thing real big, so your opponent kind of had to assume that it was as big as the number of artifacts you had. One of the things it would be comboed with was there was a card that every time an artifact went to the graveyard, it did damage to the opponent. So you get out a bunch of stuff, sacrifice it, make this bigger. If this died, then just move to another creature. Sometimes it would move to another Arcbound Ravager. Arcbound Ravager proved to be mega powerful.
Darksteel also brought with it 4 card cycles. Affinity Golems, which are artifact creatures that have an affinity for specific basic land type, such as Spire Golem having affinity for islands. Echoing Spells, which affect all of the chosen card with the same name, such as Echoing Ruin, destroying all artifacts of the same name as the one targeted. Lucky Charms,
they're magically delicious,
which is slang for a type of artifact which gains its controller life whenever a spell of the appropriate color is played, such as Angel's Feather, gaining its controller 1 life whenever a white spell is cast. And Pulses, which is a cycle of rare spells that have a chance of returning to the player's hand should a specific condition be met, such as with Pulse of the Tangle, which provides its caster with a 3/3 token creature before returning to its owner's hand should an opponent control more creatures at the time of resolution. Aside from those cycles, all of which found a home in one deck or another, Darksteel also featured a nice selection of legitimately good and powerful cards, many of which are still used in top-tier decks today. This includes Aether Vial, a staple in Legacy and Modern Death and Taxes decks, the aforementioned Arcbound Ravager, the indestructible cards Darksteel Citadel and Darksteel Reactor, the latter being an alternate win condition that is sometimes seen in certain EDH decks. Skullclamp, a card that is still banned today in Modern, Legacy, and Mirrodin block play. Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Light and Shadow, and Trinisphere, which is seen in professional level decks such as Mud, Ravager, and Dragon Stompy. And of the 3 reprints that appear in the set, only 2 are really worth a mention. Fireball, the classic direct damage X spell, which, at this point, had not seen print since 5th edition some 7 years prior. And Juggernaut, a once powerful artifact creature that had last been seen in 1994's Revised.
It's been a while.
Finally, like with Mirrodin, another piece of the Cauldra equipment set, the Shield of Cauldra, was highlighted as the set's pre-release card, complete with alternate art.
2 in a row!
So is Darksteel among your favorite Magic the Gathering sets? If so, let us know in the comment section here on YouTube. And please subscribe to the Magic Untapped on YouTube and toss a buck in our Patreon tip jar to support more great Magic the Gathering content.